Hi, I'm doing this video. I was reading some things on Google, and when I do Google here on this tablet or on my cell phone, it gives me the chance to view newsworthy kind of items. Some of the stuff's not really newsworthy. It's like some guy thinks he's a reporter and he finds some article about so-and-so and he writes a small story about it, tells you a little bit about the thing and passes it off as his own story, hoping that you'll read it. Like, oh, so-and-so said this, and that's the news of the day, when that's all the news that they've got is so-and-so said this. Well, anyway, I also get a few items based on Seattle, because I search Seattle quite a lot. I look up photographs. I study Seattle only because in 2021 I had planned, which I'm going to have to do this the next election. I won't be able to do it this time, but that's actually going to play into my favor because I had planned on running for mayor of Seattle. And the reason I say this is because Seattle needs help a lot. And you got a city council that doesn't really give a shit about the city of Seattle. You got transplants that have moved into the city for a job that doesn't really care about the city of Seattle. You got homeless people, and I'm not saying all the homeless are drug addicts, but you got a larger than average percentage of the homeless people that are drug addicts. And that's not real cool. You got a lot of them that are alcoholics, and you got some that are homeless that are not. Now, I remember back when I was homeless, I didn't do drugs or alcohol. I never had that, but what I had was a lack of direction and focus. I didn't have a center inside me. My center had been lost due to some family problems. So I migrated throughout the Midwest and the West Coast, and I went from Seattle to Los Angeles to Denver, Denver to Portland, Portland to Kansas City. I went loads and loads of places like that. Hitchhiking around when I was younger. I was also an artist. So I had that as a saving grace because I was constantly into my artwork, which didn't really give me much time to do drugs or to get drunk or to settle down at that point. Now, back to the story at hand. This is about Council Member Mike O'Brien. And this was originally reported on June 5th, 2019, updated June 5th, a little bit after that, about 5 hours after the original story broke. Now, I don't claim that I wrote this story. I don't claim that this is my story. I'm going to read this from the Seattle Times, and I'm going to give you my thoughts on it, because if you haven't already known throughout all the videos I've made so far, I love Seattle. She is the most gorgeous, succulent, sexy city I've ever been in. I cannot think of another city as a whole that is more attractive than Seattle. And I love downtown. I love the hustle and bustle. When I lived in Seattle, I lived in Capitol Hill. I worked at the Pike Place Market. I had pizza down in Pioneer Square. I had seafood on the wharf. I had steaks up at the Space Needle. There's various other places I would go to get a gyro. There's other places I would go to get barbecued ribs. Tony Roma's used to be really great. It was not too far from where the CenturyLink Arena is now, or CenturyLink Stadium. They should have called that a Coliseum. Football players play in a coliseum. They don't play in a stadium. Baseball is played in a stadium. Basketball is in an arena. But anyway, back to Mike O'Brien. It says here, could the most divisive man in Seattle be about to redeem himself? I've watched some of the stuff that the city council has done. I've listened to video of them talking. Why can't you guys, I know you're politicians, I understand this, but why can't you guys talk straight? The citizens want a straight answer. They're tired of getting screwed over. They automatically assume that when you guys get in there, you're going to screw over the public. Now, we've got Sawant in there. She's a socialist. A lot of people are down on socialism. They get the wrong idea. Socialism is not communist socialism. A lot of people, they don't like free. They can't stand free. They cannot stand something. They get pissed off because they feel like they have to work for it, and it's not fair to them that you should get it for free. It doesn't matter that they should want you to get help. It doesn't matter that they should care about you because they're human and you're human and we're all in this together. That doesn't matter to them. What matters is you're getting it for free and they have to pay a high premium to have it. And they're pissed off because they cannot get it for free. They make too much money. They can't get it for free. That's their big gripe, is that they cannot get it for free. Now, back to O'Brien here. It says, could the most divisive man in Seattle be about to redeem himself? I don't know if there's any saving my reputation at this point, says O'Brien. The most divisive man told me Tuesday. I still get a lot of shut up and go home. You're just a lame duck. Well, that's because you kind of act like a lame duck, Mr. O'Brien. You kind of act like you want people to tell you to shut up. I'm going to write Mr. O'Brien a letter, and I'm going to ask him what he wants Seattle to be. Because Seattle, you're having a major identity crisis, and it's not your fault. It's everybody that's moved into Seattle that wants you to be everything but Seattle. It's like they don't want to move to Seattle to enjoy Seattle. They want to move to Seattle and turn it into a New York or San Francisco. They keep throwing around this most divisive man. I don't like that. I'm going to quit using that. That man that they talk about is Mike O'Brien, who is now in his last months on the Seattle City Council. If you Google Mike O'Brien, Seattle, that's what pops up at the top, right below his council webpage. An article that came out last year about how viscerally hated he is. Viscerally hated. These people are like throwing around these big words like they understand what they mean. He was kind of hated, which makes me wonder how he ever got into office in the first place. He was viscerally hated to the point he had become the symbol for all the city's divisions and failures. Now, I'm not going to put that on O'Brien. I'm not. I'm not going to make it his fault. Because really, it's not his fault. It's the whole city council. And it is the citizens of the city that are making money that don't give a shit about the city. They don't care about city council meetings. All they care about is going to work, making money, going out drinking, going out partying, enjoying their music, enjoying their nightlife, making more money. They could give a shit less about Seattle and how it's falling apart around them. They treat Seattle like they're they treat Seattle like they're renting a home that is taken care of by the homeowner. They don't have to do any upkeep. When something goes bad, the homeowner takes care of it. They don't treat the city like it's their city. And that's fair. I get it. Because the city of Seattle has very, very few long-term residents there that are left. Because all these transplants that have come in have destroyed the city. And it says here that they're blaming him, Mr. O'Brien, they're blaming him for all the failures of the city, which I'm not doing that. That's just what this has said. So, you're telling me the veneer of the smiley bike guy is gone, O'Brien joked, when I told him about his Google search profile. The short story of what happened to O'Brien, who really is a smiley bike guy, is that in his 10 years on the council, he had a penchant for making himself the tip of the spear of our most contentious issues, often with disastrous political results. To name a few, his crusade against the waterfront tunnel, his plan to allow the homeless to camp in parks. Really? Now, that I can understand. That should have been a disaster. That should have never even got off the ground. Look, I was homeless. I understand. I get it. But I also understand that the homeless is destroying the city of Seattle. The homeless is destroying the city of Seattle. It really is. The homeless that's living in the city, it would be fine if they treated it like it was a camp. Like you clean up after yourself. Like they do it like when you're out camping and you're stopping at a campground, you clean up after yourself, you pack up your tent, you pack up all your trash, and you move on. But they're not doing that. They're treating us like it's a slum apartment that they don't care about, you know, and it's an eyesore for the city, for one. It's hurting the tourist trade, which Seattle was noted for its tourists, for another. And then it's like, I think you should just bag up the homeless and get them off the street. Put them somewhere. They say that's not fair. Well, what the residents are doing, what the homeless are doing to the city is not fair either. They're not being a productive part of society. And I get it. They don't have much money, some of them. Some of them are on disability. Some of them are on welfare. I understand that too. I really do. I understand the whole slew of whatever it is. But you just got to really just figure out what you got to do to save your city. Now, I told you earlier in this video that in 2021, I had planned on running for city council. For mayor of Seattle. That's not going to happen because, for one, I've got to move to Seattle. I've got to get rooted in Seattle. So I'm going to use this time between now and the next election, not the 2021, but the one after that, the 2021, 2014, it'd be the 2015 election, I think. The 2015 election. Yeah, I'm going to use that as a way to get my name out there, get myself rooted. I want to clean up the homeless problem. I want to clean up the drug problem. I want to clean up the high cost of living. If you want to pay out the nose to go to dinner, you want to pay out the nose for an apartment, you want to pay out the nose for a car or whatever it is you want to just throw away your money on, you should be allowed to do that. But at the same time, the rest of the city that are regular workers that are making minimum wage and lower should not have to suffer because you can just do it. Like that old Nike slogan, just do it. Yeah, well, when you just do it, everybody else has to pay for it. Now it says here It says that the homeless camp in parks. Okay, well, you put the homeless and you let them camp out in parks. Pretty soon, you're not going to have any parks. Nobody's want to go to the park. And then it says here, the drive for a head tax. Now, in theory, that would have been great because you're forcing the major companies like Amazon, and you're forcing the other companies like Facebook and Google and whoever else is in Seattle that are making 20 million or more a year. You're forcing them to give back to the city that's allowing them to make all that money. It's like, well, we brought in 25,000 new jobs. No, you did not. No, he says, we provided 25,000 new jobs. No, you did not provide 20,000 new jobs. You brought 20,000 new people to Seattle to work the jobs that 25,000 people that were already in Seattle should have gotten. And the head tax would have been great, but I don't believe that they should have did the head tax to help the homeless. Because the homeless are not getting helped. The homeless are becoming more comfortably homeless, and the homeless need to quit doing what they're doing, and we need to stop. We need to stop making it easy on the homeless. We need to make it so that other homeless from other states are not moving to Seattle just to be homeless because of how great the homeless are doing in Seattle. Now, I worked at the Downtown Emergency Service Center down by Pioneer Square. I worked there. Yeah, I worked there back in the early 90s when I was living there. Yeah, I understand. You know, it was a great, the homeless, yes, there was a homeless problem back then, but it could have been fixed. It was very, very, very manageable, the homeless problem back then. There wasn't a great epidemic of drug use like there is now until the city decided to do a needle exchange program so they wouldn't find needles on the ground. Okay, it's like we can't stop you from doing the drugs. Yes, you can. But they said, no, we can't stop you from doing the drugs. And I say, yes, you can. You say, no, you can't. And so when they want to do when they say that they can't stop the drugs, so they're going to make it to where if you're not, at least be responsible. Well, that made it okay. Now they're saying we can do drugs now, and they're not going to harm us. The city council has tied up the hands of the police. I don't think the police should misuse their power, but I think the police should use their power when necessary. Walk softly and carry a big stick, and only use that stick when absolutely necessary. Make sure that people see the stick. Make sure you don't necessarily have to use it until you have to use it. So it says here that he also wanted to unionize Uber. All got defeated or delayed or even blew up in his face. I haven't even mentioned the bike lanes. He said, that hacked off some Ballard fishermen so much that they tossed him from a party. I guess the Ballard fishermen don't like bicyclists. So, it's noted that near the end, O'Brien appears set to reverse all of that discord and score a big political win. The upcoming vote on the backyard cottages and basement units ordinances, possibly later this month, is almost certain to pass. It marks the end of 10 years of effort by O'Brien, and if it works, should create nearly as many units of low-cost housing. Look, we all know that if they do this, it's not going to be low cost. I mean, there's people renting out a bedroom out of their house, and they're charging damn near $1,000 a month for it. Low-cost housing, my ass. It also appears that possibly later this month, and almost certain to pass this backyard, it marks the end of 10 years of effort by O'Brien, if it works, should create nearly as many units of low-cost housing in a city as that complex plan that upzoned 27 neighborhoods. Now, when they say upzoned, they mean build it taller. Seattle has a particular look, and since Seattle has been a city, Seattle has tried to keep its look nice and decent. It was built on 4 hills for a reason: Queen Anne, Capitol Hill, Beacon Hill, and First Hill for a reason. The rich gravitated to Queen Anne. The school and the artsy neighborhoods and the gay neighborhoods, which I've got nothing against gays. I've got friends that are gay. When I lived in Capitol Hill, I went to several restaurants. They were great. I went to art galleries and I went to stores, and they were all really nice people, and I have lots of friends there that I haven't talked to in a long time, so really they're just acquaintances instead of friends. And then it's like you got Beacon Hill, which is like neighborhood, I think the VA hospital's up there, and then First Hill, which was the hospital. That's where all of the shanty town, the shanties, back in the early 1900s, when everybody was working on the wharf, they built that area up, and they started going into up First Hill because that's where it was cheaper to go. So, and that's where they built all their small houses for dock workers and all of that. So, having said this, O'Brien is going to be. It does. Let's see here. Hold on. O'Brien's plan seeks to get the same level of density while saving the bungalows. Seattle is like this. Seattle is like this size. But they want to cram so much stuff into it that if you ever get a chance to look at an aerial view of Central Park, a really large up aerial view looking down towards Central Park in New York, you will see a whole lot of buildings and you'll see a whole lot of stuff that's just really densely populated to the point where you can't see much. And then you go to Seattle and you get yourself an aerial view of Seattle from where the Space Needle's at, and you see all of that wide open area. If the people that are in power have their way, and if the property owners have their way, which I think the state of Washington is going to make sure they do, pretty soon everything is going to be so crowded in that area that it's going to be just one huge apartment complex. That's all it's going to be. And Seattle is not going to have any kind of shape or form. It's not going to have any kind of skyline. It's not going to be beautiful anymore. It's going to be just overcrowded and overpacked and completely ugly looking. The parks, I'm surprised they're still there. I'm surprised that the city and the property owners haven't figured out a way to tear down the parks and put in high-rises and condominiums so they could turn around and sell them for millions of dollars. But anyway, back to City Council O'Brien. Yeah, this is his last leg. He's in his 10 years, which I think they should have the same amount of term as the mayor. I think it should be 2 terms. I think the City Council should have 2 terms. And I think that in order to be on the City Council, you need to swear an allegiance to the City of Seattle. That you're not allowed to deal with any special interest groups that doesn't have Seattle's best interest at heart. When you are in the hip pocket of the developers and you're in the hip pockets of the rich business owners, you are not going to be doing what's best for the city you were hired to take care of and to protect. Like the Space Needle that stands there over the top of the city, guarding it from intruders. The city council members are supposed to guard Seattle from harm, but they don't. It says here, it says, the city's study said O'Brien's policy would lead to 22% fewer teardowns of homes than the pace we're on. Over 10 years, that means saving about 500 old homes from the bulldozer, even as those homes and others get repurposed to add more than 4,000 units of modestly priced apartments or cottages. Now, modest apartments to who? The middle class, the 60 million? I mean, the 60,000 or more a year workers, or the 20,000 or less that are on minimum wage, or SSI, or Social Security, or VA benefits. It says here, it says that O'Brien is proposing to stop them with a 1-year waiting period between construction of a first in-home unit and a second. The goal is for the ordinance to be used mostly by homeowners. Converting a dingy basement into an apartment is what allowed me to buy my first house. That was in Washington, D.C., where they call them English basements. The basement provided super cheap housing for young renters at the same time period. At the same time, paid about a third of my first mortgage each month. Okay, I'm in an incognito window, so you got to bear with me. It says here, it says that super cheap housing for young renters at the same time paid for about a third of my first mortgage each month. It made the difference for me between owning and renting. I think it's going to be broadly popular in Seattle, O'Brien says. No, the developers who want to make that profit are thinking that it's going to be. Now, my time's about up for this video. I'm going to let you off on that note. I know I'm breaking off at a weird point, but my point was that O'Brien is going to be out of office. And between now and the 2015 elections, I plan on really doing a whole ton of investigative reporting about Seattle and its issues, and find out where the different council people stand on certain things, where the city's going to go on the homelessness problem, the drug abuse problem, how they're helping bring down the cost of living, and all of that stuff. So next time we meet, I will give you another heads up on that. But for right now, I'm going to let you go. I know I'm ending kind of at a weird point, but I'm almost out of video. Have a good night, Seattle. This has been All Things Considered, because I consider all things. Have a good night, Seattle, and all points beyond.